spend time hearing stories from the Transformers. His work as Optimus Prime. His work as, some of you know, Eeyore. From Winnie the Pooh. And so many more. We're going to start with a short video with some clips just to give you a little history, some examples of so much of the great work that Peter has done over the years. And then we are going to get started. So line up now with the blue microphone right here, because we're going to have an awesome Q&A session for the next hour. So excited you made it. Get ready, get pumped. Let's hear it for Peter. Check out the video. Here we go.
Cullen is an Emmy-nominated actor with a career spanning almost 50 years. He was born in Canada on July 28, 1941. He attended and graduated college and the National Theatre School of Canada. In 1967, he was part of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour and many other TV shows over the next decade. Since 1979, he has worked on many memorable animated series like Scooby-Doo, Spider-Man, Pac-Man, G.I. Joe, GoBots, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Dungeons and Dragons, Rainbow Bright, My Little Pony, Ghostbusters, Rambo, DuckTales, Rockstar, and Dino Riders, just to name a few, and has voiced many beloved characters. Decepticons! Don't want to ruin everyone's good time. He's provided great voices for such characters as King Kong, Gremlins, The Predator, and other unforgettable characters such as Carl from Knight Rider. He is one of only a handful of voiceover artists that has been both cartoon voice actor and a movie trailer announcer. The only thing that really matters in space. The way home. This summer, evil has a new enemy.
And now, world champion female bodybuilder Vera Domino explodes along the stream as Vera Costa, Mistress of Destruction.
One particular role cemented his voice in the hearts and minds of children of all ages. In the early 80s, he auditioned for the leader of a group of heroic alien robots. The character's name was Optimus Prime. He based the voice on John Wayne and his older brother, veteran Marine Corps Captain Larry Cullen.
And I just pulled from people in my life that had a great influence on me.
Transform and roar!
He booked the job. Larry Cullen sadly passed away in 2011. An episode of Transformers Prime was dedicated to his memory. Peter Cullen voiced Optimus Prime for 2 years in 61 episodes, and in one of the most surprising moments in cartoon history, his character died in the 1986 Transformers animated movie.
Do not grieve. Soon, I shall be one with the Matrix.
In the third season, Optimus returned for one episode, and at the end of the season to save the universe once more, but the series ended after only 3 episodes in season 4. The show was re-released as Generation 2 in the early 90s, and all that time, little did Peter Cullen know that the character had become a hero, inspiration, role model, and even a father figure to fans everywhere. At conventions around the globe, he learned just how much he meant to his fans.
Peter Cullen.
And when the live-action movie was announced in June 2003, fans rallied behind him to bring the iconic character back to life. The film was a box office success, spawning an onslaught of sequels, shows, and games. Peter would reprise his role as the Autobot leader in Revenge of the Fallen, Dark of the Moon, Age of Extinction, Transformers Prime, Beast Hunters, Rescue Bots, Universal Studios Transformers The Ride 3D, War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, over a dozen other games, and will return again in Transformers Robots in Disguise, coming soon.
This is our oldest player. I'm working to have fun. Let the fun roll. Roll the fun out. Let's.
How you doing?
Hold that.
Doing great. I wish I could interview him, but I can't.
To be a cowboy has become a permanent part of our pop culture and television and movie history. He was nominated for a long overdue Academy Award in 2011 and another in 2014. That same year, Peter Cullen finally received one honor he's long since deserved, the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Setting cement in a Grauman's Chinese theater is an experience that I could never imagine.
Father, actor, hero, and legend. He even inspired this guy as a 5-year-old boy to pursue this career, become a full-time professional voice actor, and the epic movie voice of Honest Trailers. So on behalf of myself, my family, and millions of fans around the world, thank you, Peter. Autobots transform and roll out till all are one. And now, SacAnime 2015 is proud to present your host, Chris Gore, and our featured guest, Peter Cullen.
Are you ready for Peter to roll out? A big warm SacAnime welcome to Peter Cullen!
I thank you. It's getting warmer in here. I've been freezing. Are you all doing okay? Well, thanks for coming. Sacramento has really become one of my favorite cities. And it has a lot to do with just this. Refreshing, warm, interesting, honest. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Have a seat and let's start this conversation. I have so many questions. I know you guys have a lot of questions, so please line up at the blue microphone and we'll get to as many of you as we can. Peter, I mean, there's so many things to ask. I have to know, like, when did you know how important Optimus Prime was to so many people? I mean, you've done so much work previous to the Transformers. Optimus Prime became iconic, but when did you know, like, hey, this is more than just, you know, another job that I've done?
More than meets the eye.
When did you know it was more than meets the eye? Like, when did the whole fandom really begin to swell and you noticed it?
It was probably 2005, and my daughter Claire told me that, Dad, what was this talk about you going to New York to do a convention? I said, well, I was asked to go to the Optimus Prime convention, but I don't think I'm going to do it. She said, why, Dad? I said, I'm just going to remember that. She said, Dad, you've got to go. They really love Optimus Prime. I mean, they care for Optimus Prime. So how can you be sure? She said, all the kids in school, Dad, when I say that Optimus Prime is my dad, they go nuts. So you've got to go. And so when I went, and I walked into a room smaller than this, about the same amount of people, and I was shocked, I was stunned that the response was there. That's when I found out. And then ensuing times again where I started talking to a lot of people, and they told me that the effect that Optimus Prime had on their lives, I started taking it very seriously. But then it was 2007, and this is when it really started, because they were casting for Optimus Prime in the Michael Bay films.
Wait, can I stop? They were casting for Optimus Prime? Isn't there only one person that can play Optimus Prime? I recall that too. I remember being outraged. I remember thinking there's no one else.
I had to read for the part 3 times.
What?
Anyway, I'm glad I did. But the most important part of this whole message that I'm trying to relate at this stage right now is it was you, all of you, that because of your tenacity, your insistence, that I, reclaim Optimus Prime. It was the impact, the influence to the studio executives and to the directors and all those involved that really pushed it over the edge, that brought me out, and I thank you for that, from my heart. Actually, I love you for that. I love it. That's great. Are those balloons? How clever. That is clever. How wonderful is that?
This is great.
Oh,
That is awesome. Check this out. Look at that.
thank you.
Oh.
What would he sound like? Thank you.
Now, I know we'll be talking a lot about Transformers today, but another iconic role, Eeyore. I really don't know, how did that part come about?
Eeyore was a casting call again. The actor who played Eeyore in a few of the feature films from Disney passed away, and they had a cattle call where you audition for a role in anything, and there's dozens and dozens of actors all vying for the same job. And they just wanted somebody to be able to sound exactly like the original Eeyore. I just did this on a television interview this morning, and I described it as kind of neat. I did the best impersonation I could of the actor, and his voice was, "Hello, thanks for noticing me." And by the time we got into the series, I felt that maybe Eeyore was a little too cranky. Maybe he was just a little too, so I gave him a little softer, more lovable sounds, and to the point where you know it today, and some of you will. Hello, thanks for noticing.
Are you surprised when you watch this video with the culmination of so many things you've done in your career, where you look at some of this and go, there's some of the things you look at and go, I don't remember even doing that one. Does that happen to you sometimes?
Yes.
It's such a huge body of work.
Quite frankly, I can't remember a lot of the characters, but that probably is an indication that a lot of the shows that I've done went into the bin, for want of a better word. No, I don't even recognize the sound of some of the characters. Over the years, voice change, and some of the characters never really became that successful. I think of many of them over the years, but pardon me. But a voiceover actor is cast for one role in a series, but he will be having to do 3 more voices, and you only get paid for 1. So actors that could do multiple voices worked all the time. Think of the money you save. If you did over 4 voices, you get paid another so you get paid twice. But so back in the day, I would say, there was only a handful of voice actors, and I've worked with them all, including Mel Blanc, who was my hero.
Yes.
I put Frank Welker in the same boat. Of course, June Foray. I've had the most wonderful career, and it's certainly not over yet, I hope. Just to be working with actors that you would normally never meet in real life, because there's very few mad people like me in the world. I began to understand, because there were only one or two guys in school that I remember that did things that I did. And we were always getting in trouble, because you would never give up an opportunity to do a sound to make somebody laugh, whether it's in the classroom or in an auditorium like this. And inevitably you would end up getting suspended or detention or whatever. But to be in a room, in a recording studio, as you well know, Chris, and to be with 10 other like-minded people, it's hilarious. It's a job, but it's not a job. You're doing something you love to do, surrounded by people that do the same thing, and that's rare. It's kind of like being on a football team, except you're not wearing shoulder pads. But in any case, I've had a wonderful career, and as I said, it's not over by any means, but I've always been adamant about what I profess to my children and to friends, is that if you're not doing something you love, then you might as well not do anything. You've got to do what you love to do, because that's what life is. And I'm probably one of the most fortunate people in the world to have had the opportunity to do what I love and make people happy at the same time. I mean, I am very grateful for that.
I just think it's awesome to learn that making inappropriate noises in a classroom could be the pathway to the career that you've had, which I think is amazing. And that's a funny question too, because obviously you've given lines to read for all your roles, but a lot of it, especially with regard to Optimus Prime, you have to make noises. You have to make fighting and grunting noises. How does that even look on the page, and how do you do that?
That's an interesting question, Chris, but I think the only way I could possibly describe that in an isolated situation was when I did King Kong. And King Kong didn't speak. He groaned. Wow! So, he had to express himself in all the emotions just with the voice, whether it was anger, or if it was calm, or it was love. And by the 11th reel, I had made up my mind that I would never do that again, because I was coughing up blood, to tell you the truth. And I thought, maybe I had really hurt my voice. It was there for so long. And monster sounds and fighting sounds, falling off a building sounds, impact sounds, exertion sounds. They're all identifiable, but they're all different. I mean, you just can't do the same sound when you're getting hit, in the chest, as opposed to in the sack. I can't believe I'm doing this.
But it's not,
It's a living.
but it's that level of seriousness and that thought process that got you to where you are, like taking that seriously. Where are you taking the punch?
Right.
It's fantastic. Also, the one thing they say about Sacramento crowds, they're the most shy because there's no one at the microphone. Come on, is this the line? Oh, stand up and let's get your questions. Let's get your questions for sure. So we have limited time, so tell us who you are and let's hear your question.
My name is Aaron. I actually came to SacAnime specifically to see you, sir.
Thank you, Aaron.
And I wanted to ask, you've been doing voices for like most people who are live, and you talked about that you're still, you're hasn't been any years of tech, but you need to talk to whether you might retire at some point, or you're just going to keep doing it until something else happens. It's going to make sense.
I'm gonna keep doing it until I order.
Great question. Next.
My name's Noel, and I'm licensed to work with Frank Will from Michael Bell.
It was probably the most hilarious, funny, happy, inspiring, and there wouldn't be too many sessions where you didn't walk away where your stomach was tight from laughing.
All right, thank you.
Great. Let's hear it, sir.
Hi.
How you doing, Mr. Cullen? My name is Anthony Beeson, and I was in the Marines.
Thank you for your service, Anthony.
Sir, you've been an inspiration to me. I'm 43 since I was 8 years old. And what you did when you always line up all of us and said, roll out, that was inspiration to me. And I love that. That's how I'm doing it.
My heart goes out to you and to your mates, and simplify. As you know, well maybe not, my brother was a captain in the Marine Corps. He fought in Vietnam as a lieutenant. He was decorated. He had 2 Purple Hearts and the Bronze Star with the V. And he is responsible for me being Optimus Prime, as I said earlier. I took his advice and I listened to him. And when I was at the audition, that Marine came out in me. And thank you very much, Anthony.
Thank you, sir.
Speaking of the microphone, you want to hear the question?
I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. This is like such an honor. My dad served in Iraq in 2005. And you were such a hero to me personally. I'm sorry. My question is kind of a skit sort of thing. I would just love to see Optimus in bumper-to-bumper New York traffic. He's never seen He's always keeping everyone else together when he's probably falling into the heart of the scenes and he, I just really want to see him stuck up in traffic.
I was in a squad car being taxied around a big city, and I was sitting in the front seat, and the officer handed me his walkie-talkie microphone that had the speaker out through the grill. We were stuck in traffic, and he handed me the mic, and I went, I said, there are people in the way, and so I said, citizen, move now. It was a very fun moment because the officer behind the wheel hit that little, that little beeper, get out of my way. Move. That was very good. Thank you. I'm sorry, Jim.
James.
Oh, James.
Do you know what the Transformers is? Agent Extinction.
Yeah, I do a lot of that.
repeat the lines.
What was the line?
Yeah, let's go.
We're giving you freedom.
Speak up into the microphone. We want to make sure everyone hears your
I don't
question.
have a problem with that.
Great, excellent.
Sir, thank you, Anthony, as well. I served in Iraq and I served in Afghanistan.
Thank you.
Your brother and the fact that the leader without yelling, which I completely and totally understand and can relate to a lot of things you were saying. We'll talk about that. But what would you say is your most favorite thing about playing Optimus Prime as a leader?
I have a feeling, and it's always the same. Optimus Prime is such an integral part of character. He has dignity and he has strength, courage, trustworthiness, honor, noble. He's a noble character. He has compassion, and he has a sense of strength that comes through that passion without trying to be tough. He is tough. And I'm sure you as a Marine understand that.
Yes, sir.
Because you know what inner strength is, and when you have it, you don't have to display it. And I thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Shucks, Brad. Lincoln Lubricant. Ironhide. Not now.
Mr. Cullen, my name's Kyle. My question is, with your stylistic differences in your voice between the Warford Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron games, the Prime TV show, and the Michael Bay movies, being like the emphatic, energetic for the video games, the somber, brooding for Prime, and the rageaholic for the Michael Bay movies, was it voice direction or was it your own stylistic choice based on the tone of the material that was different? So.
Very good question. And of course I had to adjust to that because the G1 series was a very well scripted, flowing cartoon. But now I enter the world of human beings and having to relate to a human being in a real situation, back at Michael Bay, wondering if in fact I could act, because he wanted Optimus Prime to leave the cartoon genre and enter into the real world of relating to other actors in real life situations, perhaps. And I can understand any director wanting to know whether or not an actor could perform on that level. But Optimus Prime is, to me, always is steady, accountable, and he can change. He represents too many good things. And regardless of how the script is written, Optimus Prime is going to be Optimus Prime. And you probably picked out a few areas over the years where he's had to say things that he wouldn't normally say. I'll give you one example, would be in the last movie where he says, "I'll kill them all." I thought that line, I said, because it's okay, it's a human quality of losing your temper and having vengeance. But I don't see Prime that way. They insisted that I do the line. And so there's the edge, that's the rub. But I think I'm answering your question by saying, I don't want to be so serious about this, but I have to be faithful to the real Optimus Prime. And hopefully I've done that.
Next question, let's hear it.
Brothers I had very little to do with, to tell you the truth. It was the Sonny and Cher show that I was on for 4 years. And I was one of 4 other performers that did all these sketches. The characters from Raggedy Andy all the way to Nixon and people like that. But I even did John Wayne one time. But we played so many different funny characters. That was all, I guess, I ended that part of my life, and I made a decision because it was, quite honestly, it was too, although I loved acting in character sketches, I had a family and I wanted to guarantee them a future. So I isolated my career into just doing voiceover, because you had an opportunity to go out 4 or 5 times a day in an audition format, and quite honestly, your chances of getting 1 out of 5 were pretty good. So I worked on a regular basis, whereas if I were an actor on camera, the series came to an end, I'd be looking for work, and they're few and far between. You know, when you make it to the Sonny and Cher show, and you're unemployed for about 3 or 4 months, and musical comedy is going out, and they're all new avenues, and the chances of landing another series would be very slim. But working as a grunt in the voiceover world, I managed to make a living and raise my family. I hope that answers your question.
Can you speak into the microphone? We want to hear you.
My question was, aside from Optimus Prime and the G1 series, who's your favorite
Did I, aside from Optimus Prime, did I?
It's okay.
I don't know. I think
Almost have to do a sound effect to follow that. I'm having trouble hearing you.
I said, aside from Optimus Prime, who's your favorite Autobot character?
Autobot character? I loved Iron.
Aww.
Come on, Prime. Let's kick some butt. Leaking lubricants. Let me out. Not now, Ironhide. Wait your turn. G-Prime.
It was fun. I even had fun with Frank Welker when he did Megatron, because I wasn't afraid of him. Oh my gosh.
Thank you, that was a great question.
Thank you, dear. Get the smile off my face.
The problem with me is I'm tall, right? So I gotta nail down how long Kristen becomes shy. First off, it's not both of you. Chris and Cora, I was a big fan of your reviews.
Oh, thanks.
G4. It's very intelligent. It was thanks to you I found out that there's one opportunity to decide Sacramento films. There's budget, there's timing, there's getting everyone's characters together. So I think it's very good.
Thank you.
He's a very talented man.
When I first saw your picture, I was like, "Who's beautiful?" So I checked it out. I'm like, "This guy almost reminds me of Vincent Price." It's a very old actor.
Yeah.
It's all like, "I'm the last man alive." You know, so during Michael Jackson's Thriller, he's like, "And creepy bodies coming in to seal you." So, anyways, my question is, after this passed away, don't you know, his name was Jesse. Hang on, I got it. Jesse Casey. He was the voice of Shaggy. He was a video game. He was also a street and Clinton. Do you have any personal stories with this actor?
Casey was the world's oldest teenager, I used to call him. He was always fun to be with, and I remember Casey, and his radio career, and I was always mesmerized by his voice, and I was very surprised that he could sound other than his own voice. He was a very interesting man, and I miss him. It was a loss. We grew up with so many icons in the world when you lived in my era, and now every time you turn around a corner, you're bumping into a dozen icons. But Casey was one of those great guys that made a career and lasted a long time, and I'm grateful for having the time to work with him. So it's a good experience.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
My name's Casey. I actually have a request. So it's my friend's birthday. Her name's Brianna, and I was wondering if you could say happy 24th birthday, Brianna. I'm going to birthday and your response.
What's your name?
Brianna.
Brianna?
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Brianna. Many more. And I hope you have a good day. Happy birthday, Brianna. Hope you're having a good day.
People hear me. Hey, hi. My name's Cody. It took me a long time to realize, and it actually took you and your voice and all the roles you played for me to realize I want to do something in film. I am now working to become a screenwriter, and I'm actually working with my friends, and we want to hopefully try and make one of the next Transformers shows. And I'm glad you're excited. And so this is coming from a screenwriter's point of view and as a huge fan. I know that Optimus Prime is, meant to be the same throughout the entire series. He's one of the only Transformers that doesn't change. And that's a great thing. But out of all the renditions, out of Michael Bay's version, out of Rescue Bots, out of the aligned continuity with the video games of Prime, and even the new one, Robots in Disguise 2015, what's your favorite version of Optimus Prime?
I have to go back to repeat what I said. Optimus doesn't change. And being that so, where would I feel most comfortable in what venue? There's a lot of ingredients that would be necessary for that. Doing G1 and working with all the actors in the same room, there was a chemistry. And whether or not we understood what we were saying at the very beginning, there's an encyclopedia that thick about Cybertron and Optimus Prime before he was Optimus Prime. And, well, we weren't privy to a lot of that information. However, the ingredient was all of us working together and discovering it at the same time. The series that came after were a little more adventuresome in the case that they spent a lot more money on Transformers Prime than they had any of the previous series. It was a big gamble. And subsequently now, with the Rescue Bots working with the younger generation, there's a different feel. I would have to say that given the movie is completely different from television series, I worked alone with Michael Bay. I was the only one in the studio working to a big screen like that, standing in front of it with a microphone and a camera just focused on my lips. And that's very strange. You have to imagine somebody looking at you and you're talking, and then they just right there looking at your mouth. You want to go. So the film experience was different. I enjoyed G1. I really enjoyed it. It was a long time ago. I was just a whippersnapper. And I didn't have it. Where's my chair? Long time ago. Thank you.
Yeah, we're running. We only have about maybe 5 more minutes, so we'll get through as many questions as we can. Thank you.
This thing on?
Okay.
Hi, Jason Stefani.
Hi, Jason.
A little intimidated. I'm not a Marine or anything. I'm just your average Joe. But let's see. I am inspired to become a writer, or an actor, even a voice actor. I have a lot of people who inspire me. Tom Kenny, Tony Oliver, Casey Garris, you, of course. But who are some people who inspired you growing up? Like some of your idols, some of the people who were icons in your day that you loved and wanted to be like as a kid?
Mel Blanc. Mel Blanc is the reason that I went into voiceover. And I'll tell you why. It's a great question. When I was a kid, I was no more than 6 years old, and I was at the Playhouse Theater in a little Atlantic Eastern town. And we went to the movies on Saturday afternoon. And when I was, the first experience I had going to a movie, we weren't allowed to go to movies where I was raised in Quebec, Canada, because of fire. And so you had to be 16 years or older to go to see a movie. But down in Massachusetts, you go on a Saturday afternoon. It's the first cartoon that I ever saw. I didn't know how to spell, and I sat during the credits because I was so impressed with Mel Blanc, and I can't remember the characters at the time. But I was enthralled with that. And I asked somebody, I said, who does that? Who does that? And they said it was Mel Blanc, and I never forgot it. Never.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a great question. Really great question. That'll be wonderful. Thank you.
Go for it.
Thanks, Jason.
Again, thank you very much for coming. Happy New Year, by the way.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year, everybody.
Just the good news.
Mr. Cullen, you've been obviously a seasoned veteran in quite a while in the industry, and you've been an inspiration for everyone, but also you've been an inspiration to a lot of new generation of voice actors. So my question is, since you are, of course, still in the industry, what's it like working with some of these younger voiceover artists who, more than likely been highly inspired by? Are they, just professional? Are they respectful? Or are they kind of like where they're barely holding back fanboy now?
My experience with the new generation, I'm impressed. I love their energy, and I love their ability to imagine. Let's face it, when I was growing up, I had radio. Today, you have everything from video, cartoons, films, your games, and thousands of electronic images that buzz by your head every day. I find the new generations to be electric and to be inspiring, energetic, forward-thinking, and out-of-the-box thinking, and it's fun to be around them. They're wonderful people. And hopefully when I get back to Los Angeles, I'll be picking up where we left off with Rescue Box and Transformers in Disguise. But yeah.
I think we have time for only one more question. I'm sorry. What's that? Okay. Maybe two more questions. Let's go.
All right. My name's Sean. How are you doing?
Hi, John.
Hi, Sean.
Sean. What can I do?
Okay. What was it like finding out that Megatron was going to kill Ironhide and Optimus Prime in Transformers the movie?
Well, it's always disconcerting because you're wondering, will I be coming back? Not like 1986 with Orson Welles. Oh boy, there goes. Lovely. Back to the auditions. Anyway, no. It's make-believe to me. And they'd have to be crazy not to bring it back because they've made $4 billion off this movie. It's a lot of money, $4 billion. Where does it go? I'm right there. Just kidding. Thank you very much. Did I answer your question?
Actually, more or less.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie.
Hi, Mackenzie.
Scale of 1 to 10, how awesome is Optimus Prime?
Could you repeat that question?
How awesome is Optimus Prime?
How awesome is Optimus Prime?
I think my brother Larry would say, Peter, if you answer this question wrongly, I'm gonna smack you. He's too humble to be awesome. That's
That's an awesome answer. That's great. I think one more question. One more question.
Hi, my name is Marcus, and I'm wondering who came up with the speeches
Who came up with the speeches in
the movies?
In the movies?
the writers.
Yeah.
I guess they have quite a group of people that get together on the literary side, and they want to make sure that they're going in the right direction from beginning to end. But we have some wonderful writers, and they've, for the most part, over the years, have written some really sustainable and lovely pieces. He's had a few. The opening and the closing of some of the major films are always fun to read, and because they all have such substance. And I give credit to the many writers that have been involved. I don't know if I answered the question, but...
Well, I would like to follow up on that, Peter. Like, do you add to some of those sometimes? You look at some of these things that Optimus is about to say, and like you say, like, Optimus might not say this. Like, you know the characters sometimes better than the writers.
For the most part, the writers really do understand the character. The problem will be in somebody's direction, saying, I'd like to, we want to fill in a spot here where there's nothing, and how about you saying this? And I go, no, I don't think he wouldn't say that. So it's a very difficult, sensitive time, and you have to be very careful because you have to do what you're told, but at the same time, you have to be, conscious of the integrity of Prime. But I'm struggling for words now, so I'll leave it with that. I just confused myself.
Well, we're actually out of time for questions. I'm sorry. However, you can actually talk to Peter, get his autograph and an exclusive poster and comic. I've got a signed one right here. An amazing gold pen. We'll sign this exclusive comic and poster. It's in Ballroom 316 between 1 and 3 p.m., the VIP package, so you can spend more time with Peter and get all your questions answered. I want to thank you guys today for being such an amazing audience. SacAnime.
Yeah, you guys are great. I love you guys.
Everyone! And give it up for Peter Cullen!
What up, big kids? I am here with the legendary, the one only Optimus Prime, Peter Cullen. How are you doing today, Peter?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for having me.
Real quick, have you ever been to Sacramento at SacAnime? Well, this is your first SacAnime, but have you ever been to Sacramento before?
Yes, I have, as a matter of fact.